He kissed her like he'd invented the word, like her lips were the secret to staying alive. The kind of kiss that made walls tremble and clocks pause. Every time he touched her, it was with the reverence of a man who'd never been allowed to love before and never would again. And God, did he love her loud. His laughter echoed through her apartment like a second soundtrack. His voice carried through midnight calls, ordering pizza with no shame while she sat on his lap in oversized shirts and tangled sheets. He moaned her name like prayer, like a song he didn't care who heard. And when they made love, it was never gentle, it was a war. Cry wrapped in tenderness. It was teeth grazing her shoulder, hands gripping her thighs like they were gospel, and her name etched into breathless skin. He was chaos in denim and leather, a boy with too much fire in his eyes, and not enough past to explain it. He made promises in whispers and followed them with storms. Thought his name was Adon, and the last thing he said to her was nothing. No goodbye, no note, no closure. Just silence. That morning was supposed to be ordinary. Adon had fallen asleep beside her, his arm slung lazily across her waist, his mouth slightly open, like always. The city buzzed outside their window. She slipped out of bed, kissed his bare shoulder, and made coffee. When she came back, the sheets were cool. His side of the bed was empty, his clothes gone, his scent fading, her world spinning. She waited. An hour, a day, a week. She called, texted, emailed, walked their usual haunts. Nothing. Adon was a storm, and storms never say goodbye. They just pass, wreck what they touch, and vanish. 2 years later, the memory of his voice still curled around the edges of her ribs like a phantom ache. She had almost convinced herself she was okay, almost learned to breathe without waiting for his name to return with the wind. She dated, tried, failed. None of them touched her like he did. None of them hurt her like he did. Because Adon didn't just love with his hands or his mouth. He loved with volume. And now, silence was all she had left. Until the knock. It came just past midnight. She froze on her couch, wine glass half full in her hand, her body still dressed in solitude and soft jazz. It was too late for neighbors, too early for delivery, too unexpected for anything but ghosts. She opened the door, and there he was. Rain dripped from the edge of his jaw. His hair was longer, his stubble thicker, his eyes tired, older, but unmistakably him. Adon, the man who once held her face like it was the last sunrise he'd ever see, the man who vanished like breath on a mirror. She didn't speak, neither did he. Instead, he slowly stepped into the hallway light, his lips parting but nothing came out. No explanation. No apology, just the way he looked at her, like she was still fire, still thunder, still his. And just like that, her carefully rebuilt silence cracked. Everything inside her clenched. Her fingers tightened around the wine glass. Her heart beat the rhythm of old songs she swore she'd forgotten. Her eyes burned with 2 years of ache and 2 seconds of want. He was real, standing here, after all this time, alive, unforgiven, uninvited. But real. Adon, she finally whispered. It was barely breath, barely voice, but it was all he needed. I never stopped, he said. The words were quiet, unlike him, unlike how he used to love her. But before she could ask never stopped what, He stepped forward and kissed her. Not like a stranger. Not like someone asking permission. He kissed her like the world had been paused for 2 years, and tonight it spun again. His mouth was still warm when he pulled away. She stood there frozen, jaw tight, heart louder than the silence between them. His breath mingled with hers in the hallway, laced with something old, something dangerous. Regret. Rain whispered on the window behind him like a soundtrack built for apologies. He reached for her cheek. Slow, reverent. She flinched. Not because she didn't want it, but because she did. And that terrified her. "You don't get to walk in here like that," she said, voice low and cracking. "I know. Don't say that." She shoved the wine glass onto a side table, not caring that it nearly tipped. "You don't know. You have no idea what it did to me." Adon looked down, shame dragging his shoulders like weights. "I couldn't stay. You didn't try. I couldn't even tell you why," he said quietly. And there it was again, that quiet. It was louder than anything he'd ever screamed. In their past life, she studied him in the amber hallway light. His shirt clung to him from the rain. His hands were shoved deep into his jacket like he didn't trust himself with them. But his eyes, they hadn't changed. Those damn eyes still burned like they were made of wildfire and promises. She stepped back. "You should go." "I can't." "Try harder," she snapped. He didn't move, just whispered, "Can I come in?" She hesitated. This was her home now, her sanctuary, her silence. But her fingers betrayed her. They reached for the door. They opened it. They sat in her kitchen, both wrapped in tension and old shadows. He barely touched his tea. She didn't sip hers at all. Her questions curled inside her throat, angry and desperate. But she gave him one. Just one. "Where did you go?" Adon looked at his hands. "New York. Then Lisbon. Then nowhere. Really." "Why?" Her voice cracked on the word like glass splitting under pressure. "I was breaking," he said, "and I didn't want to break near you." She blinked. "So you chose to break me instead?" He winced. "I was scared of how much I needed you, of how real it was. I loved you so much it made me feel like I'd lose myself in you. You did lose me." "I know," he whispered. Her chair scraped against the floor as she stood, pacing now. "You say you loved me. Then you vanished. What is that? You disappear without a trace and think you can just knock on my door. And I didn't think you'd answer," he said. "I came to see you. Just once. I thought I'd look at you through the door and walk away." She looked at him, fire in her chest, tears burning behind her lashes. "But you kissed me." "I had to." Silence again. He was still in that same chair. He hadn't moved. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, trying to hold herself together like a fortress. But her voice betrayed her. It always did with him. "I loved you louder than I've ever loved anyone," she whispered. "And you left me in quiet. No closure. No warning. Just absence. And now I have to sit here and pretend I don't want to rip your shirt off or scream at you or both." His gaze snapped to hers. That hunger returned. That tension. That tether. "I never stopped loving you," he said. "Then why did you stop being here?" He stood slowly, walked toward her, step by step like crossing a minefield. "I didn't know how to be enough for you," he said. "And I was too much for myself." He stopped inches from her. Her breath hitched. He reached up and gently ran the back of his fingers along her cheekbone. But I came back because I can't go one more night not knowing if you still burn for me. Her chest rose sharply. She hated that she did. But God, she did. I don't forgive you, she whispered. I'm not asking for that. I still hate you sometimes. I hate me too. She looked up, eyes shimmering. You still kiss like a man who owns thunder. He smiled faintly. That's because I only ever kissed you. And then she kissed him again, not to forgive him, not to take him back, but because her body still remembered what her mind tried to forget. And sometimes love isn't logical. Sometimes it's just loud. The moment her lips met his again, time broke. It wasn't the careful, second chance kind of kiss, measured, hesitant, seeking safety. No, it was messy, sharp, hungry. 2 years of silence erupting in a collision of mouths, breath, teeth. She didn't plan it, didn't want to need it. But Adon's hands found her waist like they'd never forgotten the curve. His fingers slid beneath the hem of her oversized sweater, and the heat of his palms against her skin was a betrayal her body welcomed too easily. He still kissed her like she was the last storm left on earth. He lifted her onto the counter with a grunt and a growl, and she wrapped her legs around him like instinct, like memory, like she'd never stopped belonging in that space between his chest and his chaos. But it wasn't just lust. It was memory. It was grief. It was home. I forgot, she gasped, breaking from his mouth. How you touched me. He pulled back just far enough to look at her, pupils blown wide, lips swollen. His voice dropped low. I never did. His thumb brushed across her lower lip. I remember this every night. I would lie awake in foreign beds, foreign cities, and try to forget the taste of your mouth, the way you moaned when I said your name. I tried, baby. I swear I tried. She stared at him, heart racing. Her pulse throbbed in places she hadn't let feel anything in months. I hate that I missed you, she whispered. I came back to remind you why you did. Their bodies moved like poetry, not perfectly, but with a rhythm older than regret. Clothes came off in quiet gasps and needy tugs, not rushed but desperate in that familiar, reverent way. His shirt fell to the floor first, then her sweater. The room grew heavy with old hunger. When he slid his mouth down her neck, she gasped his name, her fingers clawing at his back like, maybe, this time, if she held on tightly enough he wouldn't disappear again. He made his way down her collarbone, then back up to whisper in her ear, let me stay tonight. Just tonight. I don't deserve more. But let me hold you like I used to. Her chest ached. But she nodded because maybe tonight was all she had the strength for. They stumbled to her bedroom like ghosts dragging their own pasts. When he fell onto the bed beside her, he pulled her into him, bare skin to bare skin, heart to heart. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. He kissed her shoulder like a vow, held her waist like a lifeline, and when he finally moved inside her, she forgot everything. The pain, the years, the silence. All that remained was the way he said her name in the dark, the way his hands still memorized her, the way their bodies still knew a language no one else had ever spoken to her. She didn't cry. Not yet. But her breath broke. And that was enough. Later, wrapped in the hush of sweat and sheets, he traced circles on her hip with his thumb. She stared at the ceiling, her throat tight. "Are you staying?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "Tonight?" he finally said. "Yes. And tomorrow?" His hands stopped moving. "I want to," he said. "But I don't want to lie to you again." Her heart split in the same place it had 2 years ago. So that was the truth. He was here but not back. He kissed her shoulder again. "You're the only peace I've ever known, and the only place I couldn't stay." She turned her head, eyes shining. "Then maybe loving me loud isn't enough anymore." He flinched, but didn't argue. The air between them thickened with things unsaid. He wrapped his arms tight around her. She didn't resist. But something shifted, not in her body, in her heart. She just remembered how he touched her. But now, she was remembering how easily he let her go. Morning sunlight broke through the blinds like a confession, soft, golden, uninvited. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her back to his chest. His arm draped over her waist like it belonged there. And maybe once it did. Adon was still asleep, or pretending to be. Either way, his breath was steady against her neck, warm and slow. Comforting, dangerous. Because comfort was a lie she couldn't afford again. She slid from beneath his arm gently, like peeling herself out of a dream. Her feet touched the cold, wooden floor, and the reality came rushing back. He was here, but not for long. In the kitchen, the kettle screamed. She poured 2 mugs, muscle memory. Black for him, 1 sugar. She almost laughed at how stupidly automatic that was. Like no time had passed, like heartbreak had a reset button. He walked in moments later, shirtless, hair wild, eyes soft with sleep, and something unspoken. "Morning," he said, voice still thick. She handed him the mug without meeting his eyes. "Thanks," he muttered, took a sip, looked at her like he wanted to say something else, but didn't. She leaned against the counter. "Are you leaving today?" The words hung between them like a blade. "I wasn't going to. Not unless you made me." "I should," she said softly. He stepped closer, voice low. "But will you?" She looked up, and that was the problem. Every time she looked at him, her spine softened, and her heart betrayed her. "I don't know." Adon reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Last night, I didn't come here to take. I came because I couldn't carry the silence anymore." "And what am I supposed to do with that?" she whispered. "You broke me, and I kept the pieces in a drawer hoping someday you'd come back and fix them. I can't undo what I did," he said, barely breathing. "But I can love you better now, quieter, stronger, real." She shook her head. "You say that now, but love like ours doesn't fade, it burns. And when it goes cold, it kills." He stepped even closer, his mug forgotten on the counter. His hand slid onto her hip like it had every right to be there, like her body hadn't remembered it 100 times in its absence. "We don't have to go back," he whispered. "We can start different. Start here." She stared at him, studied every line on his face, the creases near his eyes, the scruff along his jaw, the hurt he carried beneath it all. And then she kissed him. But this time it was different. This time it was goodbye. Their mouths moved slow, like the world was ending, but they weren't in a rush. like they wanted to savor every second before it all burned down again. His hand slid up her back. Her lips parted. Their bodies pressed together one more time, not out of need, but out of mourning. They kissed like they knew it wouldn't last. Like this was the end of a book neither wanted to close, but the pages were running out when they pulled apart. Her eyes were wet. "I wish," she said, voice trembling, "that I could love you without losing myself." He nodded. "I wish I could stay without hurting you." She stepped back. His hand fell away from her hip like a leaf surrendering to gravity. An hour later, his bag was packed. He stood by the door, hesitant, as if leaving again might tear a hole in the floor. She stood across the room, arms crossed, heart unraveled. He looked at her one last time. "You were the loudest love I've ever known." She nodded. "And you were the quietest goodbye." He turned the knob, hesitated. "I'll never stop loving you," he said. "But I'll learn to stop needing you," she replied. And then the door closed. No slam, no storm, just the sound of quiet. She didn't cry when the door closed. She just stood there, wrapped in silence, letting the moment settle like dust around her. The place still smelled like him: coffee, rain, skin, memory. She hated that she could still taste his goodbye on her lips. But this time, she didn't chase the echo. This time, she let it pass. That afternoon, she changed the sheets. Not to forget him, but to honor herself. Clean linens, fresh start, no ghosts in the fabric. She didn't erase him. She folded him, placed him in the part of her mind reserved for once-in-a-lifetime loves. The kind that broke you beautifully. The kind you don't repeat. Days passed. Then, weeks. He didn't call. She didn't text. Not out of bitterness, no. They had said everything that mattered. Their love had no more words left, just silence. A soft kind of grief, but also peace. It was strange, at first, to sleep in a bed that didn't ache with missing. Strange to drink morning coffee without waiting for his laugh to echo from the shower. But in the quiet, she found herself again, not the woman who begged for closure, not the one who needed his chaos to feel alive. Just her. And that was enough. One night, weeks later, she walked into her favorite bar alone, wore the red lipstick he once smeared with his kisses, ordered the drink he always used to buy her but paid for it herself. She sat at the corner booth, the one they used to share, and stared at the rain outside. Same city, same season, new chapter. That's when she felt it. Not someone's hand, not someone's eyes, but her own heartbeat. Steady. Hold. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through old photos. His smile, their laughter, the night they danced barefoot in the rain, the hotel room in Rome, the blurry picture from the kitchen when he burned the eggs and they ended up eating strawberries. In bed, she didn't delete any of it. She just smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you," because some loves are meant to change you, not stay with you. Some hearts beat loud, then vanish. But if they leave you better, braver, softer, maybe that's enough. On the walk home, the rain kissed her cheeks gently. The city lights blurred like memory. She looked up and exhaled. He was gone, but so was the ache. Back home, she lit a candle, the kind he used to tease her about lavender and cedarwood. She curled on the couch, blanket tucked under her legs, a book in one hand, a glass of red in the other. And she smiled, not because she had moved on, but because she had moved through, because she had loved him loudly, passionately, with everything. And now she was letting him go. Softly,